So welcome to Studio, Scott Davis. Welcome to 13 Minutes Why Every Man Needs a Why.
That's awesome. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so let's just jump in because I've gotten to know you. Now my audience will get to know you as a dude who doesn't fuck around, right? We go deep in our conversations and we waste no time. So let's just get into it. The question my teacher, Viktor Frankl, would ask his patients, not that you're a patient, the moment he met them, probably a question that wouldn't fly with today's modern sensibilities. But the question is, why haven't you killed yourself?
No foreplay. All right.
It might be the world's worst pickup line at a bar.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Well, I mean, you're going to get a certain kind of respondent. Well, let's see. I haven't killed myself because I love and am loved by a lot of people. I haven't killed myself because I'm actually having fun. I mean, not at the dentist and not at the oil change, but generally having fun. I haven't killed myself because I think I'm making a difference in people's lives. I haven't killed myself because I'm still curious. There's a lot of stuff I don't understand. I haven't been able to experience or explore. And I think I'm still becoming better every month. And that's a journey I want to see where it goes. So there you go.
I love it. Those are unbelievable reasons to be here. So let's dig in.
Go.
There's a pastor who once said, the question isn't who am I? The question is, whose am I?
Ooh,
right? And you started with the first thing you said was, because I have people I love and people that love me.
Yeah.
So tell me, who loves, other than me, I've come to love you very quickly. Who loves Scott Davis?
Oh, well, I come from a family that loves me. So I'd start with my birth family. My mom and my dad love me very much. My sisters love me much. And they have loved me my whole life. I think that when people talk about privilege, I definitely come from a privileged background, even though my family was really quite poor when I was born. But the privilege that I had was continuity and love and affirmation and optimism and safety and security. And I mean, I had this home base, like you think about a little kid. If you have a safe fort, well, you can foray out into the world and you can explore and you're brave because you always know, hey, if it hits the fan, I always know I'm safe back at the fort. So, it starts with birth family, mom and dad, and they're awesome. My dad he's still my hero. He's one of my best friends. I work out with him twice a week. So it starts there. My kids love me. I mean, my boys are the greatest source of joy and pride in my life. They're now in their 30s, and they are the two most amazing human beings that I know. Obviously, my wife loves me. My ex-wife loves me.
That's a huge endorsement.
So yeah, I feel loved. I actually have a love shrine in my, in my office. So when I'm not doing all of my crazy tech or writing or whatever, every time I walk into my office, there's little trinkets that people have given me to remind me that I'm important to them. And it's just a way for me to remind myself that I am not just noise.
Takeaway tool, man, create a love shrine.
Definitely create a love shrine,
That's
man.
So cool. So just trinkets, pictures, whatever.
Yeah. So it could be anything. It could be a rock that I picked up on a beach after a walk with my wife on an island. It could be somebody sends me a thank you card and it's a really meaningful thank you card about something that I did that touched them. I mean, it's just a collection of mementos of connection.
The first words when you wake up from a Jewish perspective that you're supposed to say every morning in Hebrew is Modeh ani lefanecha, and it means thank you. Modeh, thank you.
Oh my God. I have said in my blog so many times that gratitude is the gateway virtue. You begin with gratitude and it just alters your perception on everything that happens. And so, yeah, I walk into my office every day and the first thing I see is, there's 20 people that love me. Really love me. Okay, well, then, it can hit the fan and I still know it's going to be okay.
Do you think you're wired this way? Because, getting to know you, we've talked about you're not an Enneagram 7, but it's your default sort of strategy in the world to see possibility. Is this a wiring thing? Is this a learned thing? Is it both probably?
I think it's probably both. My mom is an artist, super creative, super emotive, just processes the world through her emotions. And my dad is I mean, not stoic, but pretty close, and like Mr. Reliable, Mr. Conservative. And so the two of them kind of show me two ways to navigate the world. And without Dad, it would have been just chaos, right? It would have just been all emotion all the time, no coherence. Without Mom, it would have been boring and lifeless and just stayed, because it would have been the same thing over and over and over again, always the known. And so, I think that, being in a home that had both the safety and the example of, exploration and trying and, passion and emotion. I think that that's absolutely, I'm a product of my upbringing.
It's really interesting because I've gotten to know you. I didn't know necessarily the wiring of your parents or the way they move through the world, but now that makes sense because, as I'm sure we'll talk about, you have this interesting, unique capacity to have the structure. You're an entrepreneur. I'd love to hear more about, what you've done, creating a software company and, that sort of aspect of who you are. And then you packed it all up and hit the ocean and went sailing and wrote a book on, your insights out there. So those are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. I do process the world first emotionally, but then I get these kind of aspirations or visions, and I realize that in order to succeed at them, it's going to require some planning. So I'm not a plan first kind of guy. I'm more like an act first kind of guy. But in my experience, when you act without any planning, it turns out to be a lot more chaotic than it needs to be. And so as I've, ventured further and further into more dangerous territory, sailing offshore alone, sailing offshore alone on boats you don't know. I mean, you just begin to learn that if you want to go have these crazier and crazier experiences, which my emotional side does, that it's going to require the engagement of my rational side and preparation and planning and anticipation. And so, I have built a software company, and that is a very precise experience. I am a patent holding industrial engineer, and that is a very precise experience. I'm also an author and somebody who cries at Tosca. And I just am this very emotional person. I had Pablo Neruda read at my wedding. I love my emotional side, but it can't exist in isolation without my rational side. My rational side enables my emotional side to take risks without them blowing up my life.
Yeah, holding that tension is something that not a lot of people either are able to or know to do or want to do, but I can hear it now. You inherited that tension, that healthy tension from your parents. I think of somebody once said about jazz music, great jazz musicians can only riff because they know how to play within the color inside the lines so that you can then explore outside the lines.
100%. Yeah. I'm a foodie, a chef. My wife is a superb chef. And one of the things that we'll say all the time is, prove to me that you have mastered the classical preparation before you try some innovation. Because otherwise, innovation can often just be a way to hide behind the fact that you haven't mastered the skill. Right? Look how creative and clever my painting is. Well, yeah, you never actually learned how to paint the proper way. So it feels like that's a get out of jail free card for you. So yeah, I think there is this idea of, I want to bend the rules. Well, that's cool. Have you first figured out how to master the rules themselves? And I think that that's kind of I love this yo-yo experience that I have with my life, where it's, go down very, very deep in understanding a particular domain. And then based on that deep understanding, come back up and ask the question, how could this be better?
I love it. You and I met in some ways because of that dynamic. We met through a mutual friend, and you had been in his forum called peer groups for quite some time. Yeah. And to me, a forum, a peer group, especially where, they came from in this context of, I believe yours was an outgrowth of YPO, maybe?
YEO.
So for anybody listening, that's Young Entrepreneurs Organization. That's back when we were young.
I was going to say, now it's EO because we all got old.
Because the founders, didn't want to false advertise. So,
yeah, funny.
So EO, YPO, Business Network skiing, whatever, but they created forums, peer groups to bring people together. And I like that dynamic in that space, because I've met a lot of guys who came to it through vis-a-vis business, through the rational, through the structure. And then if you're doing peer group right, you're not hanging out in rational for too long. You're getting into emotional. And to be able to hold that attention, especially as men, especially as businessmen come from that world, to me is fascinating.
Yeah, I think that kind of follows the evolution of our forum. It begins in the rational because that's the safe space. But you're exactly right when you talk about that the why is the most important question, because honestly, when you start poking at someone's rationality around their corporate strategy or around their product development idea or around their new investment strategy, you're ultimately going to get to the question of why. Like, why do you choose A versus B? A looks just as rational as B. And the answer at rock bottom is going to be some sort of gestalt emotional reaction to a set of patterns in the world. And it takes a long time for men to get to that point. In my experience, it takes a long time for men to get to the point where they trust someone enough to say, hey, I'm not actually being completely rational. There is this emotional core to me that allows me to navigate the world through pattern recognition and just kind of sensibilities. Guys generally are taught that that's not a professional way to navigate the world, but it is in fact how we navigate the world. Jonathan Haidt wrote this great book. And what he's talking about in his research is the book's called The Righteous Mind. And it's about how we think that we process all these decisions so rationally. But in reality, our rationalizations are just ex post, something that we explain to make our decisions socially acceptable. And I think that we do that enormously in the business world as well. And so the one thing I do really love at the core of the forum experience is that it provides time and continuity for trust to build up so that guys can begin to admit to one another that they're not just rational robots. And once that happens, and it happens in a shared environment where I realize I'm not the only one that's experiencing this sort of emotion-driven life, gosh, I don't feel lonely anymore. Like, I feel like there are other people who are like me. And that might be the most powerful thing in an age of isolation and loneliness, is just to say, hey, I am not a freak. There are other people who are having these same feelings I'm having.
So interesting, because what you're describing is what I would normally attribute to my old world, a religious experience, right? And that's been my experience of why, for me, men's peer groups, for you, why EO forums are so powerful. They're quasi-religious.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that within the first year that I was there, because I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church, going to church, 12 hours a week. I saw all the classic religious archetypes in the way that it was structured. I mean, a small group is really Sunday school. Honestly, it's people at the same life stage dealing with the same things.
Yeah, but you like your peer group. Most people don't like Sunday school. So.
Well, I mean, honestly, I would say some of the dearest friends that I've ever had were forged in Sunday schools of various kinds. So, I mean, it is an environment in which some positive things can happen. Sure. It's also an environment in which some terrible things can happen. But, the idea of having a safe space that's intimate. So not 50 people, 10. The idea of having continuity, the idea of allowing intimacy to evolve on everyone's individual cadence. So I am not obligated to disclose the same level of intimacy that you are disclosing at this moment. Eventually, I will need to reciprocate, because that's how balanced relationships work. But it's not like on schedule. Okay, 8:05 today, Baruch is going to have to tell us about how things are going with his wife. I mean, really? That's not going to happen. But the fact that you do evolve a sense of trust in us over time on your timetable, I think that's a beautiful thing. It's very flexible.
Yeah, and another part of that is a teacher of mine, Rabbi R.A. Kaplan, once said, all spiritual quests begin with the three words, I don't know.
He's true. I mean, if you think about what is learning. So I spend a lot of time on information foraging theory and, the process of learning. And I've come to the conclusion that learning is the process of proceeding from not knowing to knowing. Therefore, the first step in the process is admitting one's ignorance. Mm-hmm. If you start with, I know, learning is not about to happen. Mm-hmm. It has to be, I don't know, or that's curious, or, you think about all of these, we are presented with so many novel circumstances in life, and there's really, I think, only three basic responses to a novel circumstance. One is kill it right now, right? So Captain Cook arrives on the island, some island in the South Pacific. The natives have never seen anything like that. Kill it. They kill him, right? Okay, that's one way to deal with it. Another way is, hey, that's novel. Let's go hide in the trees, right? So kill it is one response. Let's go hide in the trees is another response. But the sort of interesting response, the response that can lead to growth is, wonder what that is. I'm curious about that. I have questions. Well, that's just saying, I don't know what that is, and I would like to know what that is.
Yeah. And inside of that third way of being, not fight and not flight, it's, I don't know, it's curiosity. But I would also argue, and I see this in peer groups, especially with men, is, the word patience comes from Latin pati, which means suffering. And it's just holding the suffering of I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Just standing there, because it's not just, I don't know, I'm curious. Isn't this cool? It's holy shit.
Yeah.
Right. Like he could kill me, it could redeem me, whatever. But it's like, there's a suffering in that. And I'm not going to move to discharge it. I'm just going to sit with it. And I've seen for men to do that, especially coming out of the business world in a space with other men, with other entrepreneurs, to say, I don't know, I'm going to sit in this uncomfortable space. It's almost Herculean.
Yeah. We don't celebrate that. We celebrate so Top Chef. We celebrate the guy who can make an incredible dessert from pumpkin seeds and cornflakes and do it in 3 minutes, right? That's not life. That's not real. Like, we watch these TV shows. Like, I love Aaron Sorkin. He's a great writer, but all of his characters are these improvisational geniuses, right? Somebody comes in, and like The West Wing is a good example of his writing. So somebody comes in and tells the president this incredibly complex and intractable problem has just happened. And the president, without batting an eye, without thinking for 1 minute, is like, oh, well, what we need to do is ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, and he rattles it off in complete sentences, perfectly structured. It's actually a paragraph. And you're thinking, wow, that's brilliant. I don't actually think like that. I must be stupid. I'm like, well, no, you're not stupid. It's just that that's not a real human being, right? A real human being is exactly like you. Thinks about the thing you should have said in the meeting on the drive home from work. And you're like, oh, dude, how many times have you had that experience? Like, what I should have said was.
Or what I shouldn't have said was.
Oh, what I said. Yeah. Well, that one is probably obvious before you got in the car to go home. But yeah, I think that just this idea of, sitting in the moment, sitting in the discomfort, it is extremely rare. Like, how many guys, they're aware that they're missing something in their lives, right? They're aware of it. But what they really want is they want to, I'm going to do this retreat out in Sedona, and it's going to fix me in 7 days. Oh, I can afford 7 days. I don't care that it's $7,000. I can afford 7 days. And then all this pain is just going to go away. Presto. I'm like, well, I mean, it might go away for a little while, but it's not going to stay away, because it's honestly, these are complex things. Somebody wants to talk about, hey, I'm really curious about the meaning of life. So I went on to ChatGPT and asked it to tell me what the meaning of life was. And I'm like, you're actually knocking around the original hard question. People devote their entire lives to answering that question. you're not going to get an acceptable answer in 2 minutes from any human or non-human. It's going to require some work. You're going to have to sit in it.
So true. And I keep thinking about this story about Pablo Picasso. He was at a cafe and he was sketching.
I love this story.
Sketching a little something on a napkin, basically. Goes to throw it away, and woman offers to buy it. Yeah. And she says, how much? He says, $100,000, whatever it was. And she says, it took you 2 minutes. And he said something to the effect of, you didn't see the 60 years it took me to get to this moment.
Exactly.
Right? All of the failures, all of the whatever. And that's what I love about the forum, the peer group experience is like, stop telling us the bullshit napkin moment. Yeah. What about the 60 years of failures to get here?
So I would say the turning point in our forum, to give you an example of this thing you're talking about from my life. We were doing the whole business thing, sharing ideas about, hey, how did you solve this accounting problem or this personnel problem? Or, what are some different models for marketing? And so we're doing all that business stuff. And it's pretty shallow. And then at some point we did this retreat. And for the retreat, we decided we're going to fill out loan applications that we're all going to review. So we're going to review our personal finances, balance sheet, income statement, the whole 9 yards, right? Full disclosure, friend, no place to hide, right? And I got to tell you, that is the turning point. I can go back and put a pin in it and say, this is the point at which the nature of the conversations in our group changed. Because at that point, hey man, all the warts about me. Okay, well, what am I scared to talk to you about now? Because of all the things that guys are scared to talk about, being financially irresponsible is probably the dead last thing they're going to choose to talk about.
Amazing. That story, that experience is legendary. I've heard it told from multiple people who were there. And every time it's that same holy shit feeling. Like, exactly. I'd rather go back to, being in the fraternity, being lined up naked. Than,
something like that. And so after you've been through that, I mean, how hard is it to say, hey, my wife and I are, not having sex as often as I would like. I mean, that's like, no problem. We can talk about that because I've already told you that I have $30,000 worth of credit card debt and I don't know how I'm going to pay my kids, private school tuition this year. Okay, you have got to develop some trust if you're going to get to the why, because nobody's going to tell you the real why unless they trust you.
It's so beautiful to see, a group of men, because even though it comes from YEO, you guys are only men in that particular forum, right?
Yeah, in ours, yes.
Yeah, in yours. So for a group of men to, have intimacy. Yep. Right. Usually men just associate that word with, sexuality, when intimacy is so much deeper. And it's rare to have circles or spaces where you have true intimacy with somebody besides your wife or close partner.
It takes time and energy. I mean, I think this comes back to a related topic, which is friends. I mean, we all know that there's an epidemic of friendlessness amongst males in the U.S. And you ask, well, why is that? And I think that our language has a lot to do with it. When I say, do you have any friends? Mm-hmm. No, I don't have any friends. Well, friends aren't something that you have. They're not something that happens to you. Friends are something that you create. A friendship is a set of bonds that requires cultivation. It requires time, an enormous amount of time. Like if you looked at my calendar, first of all, to say, I have more really good friends than anybody that I know. Mm-hmm. But if you look at my calendar and you say, how much of my time am I spending on those friendships? It's pretty staggering. Like maybe 15 hours a week spent going to see friends, having coffee with friends, talking with friends, communicating with friends, listening to friends. So if you want to have good friends, it's not going to be, hey, ChatGPT, can you create a friend for me in 2 minutes? I mean, that's not real. It's going to take time, a protracted amount of time and an intense amount of time. And it's going to take time when it's not convenient. I mean, your friend calls you from the side of the road, his truck's broken down. You're at dinner with some other friends. Do you stay or do you go? Well, you go. If you want to build a real friend, you go when they need you. I've had friends that were listening to me and just gathered that I was under some stress or pressure, that I was not handling it very well. And they'll just immediately invite me to come have breakfast and invite other friends to show up at breakfast just to make sure it's an object lesson for me that they are there. They're not going to do that. They're not going to be tied in and sort of clued into me unless they've spent a lot of time with me. So friendship is something that you build, and it takes a lot of time. And it's super important. Honestly, it's been said that if you want to know something about someone, just look at their 5 closest friends. Okay. Well, what a tragedy that most guys in the US, they couldn't even name 5 actually close friends that they have. So does that mean that you don't really exist? I mean, it's a crazy question.
I talk to a lot of guys every day. That's what I do. And some guys will say they have friends until you start asking them, but do they know about your impending doom with finances or your wife or whatever? Well, no. Like I just ask something absurd. Like, why, they look at me sometimes, or they even say like, that's not what we talk about.
Yeah. I want my word back. That's not a friend. I want my word back.
Yeah.
Stop using that word.
Exactly. And so like we have this strange notion sometimes of what a friend is or isn't. And to have a space where it doesn't, the label isn't the thing, the experience.
Yep.
You're describing the experience of friendship, which very few men can say they have that.
Yeah, it takes a long time. It takes, consistency and continuity. But when you have that, it's really, really quite special. So, and the other thing I would say about it is I don't believe that you can create the kinds of friendship that I have. I can't create it with anybody. I try to be open to anybody becoming my friend. I mean, our experience kind of portrays that. I'll just be completely vulnerable and I'll take 5 steps toward you and we'll see. You may take steps toward me or you may go back the hell off. And I will do whatever it is. I will respond to whatever it is that you do. But there is this common trait that runs through all of my friends, all of them. And that is that they're just super honest people. They're willing to have an honest conversation. They're willing to be intimate. They're not scared. And so I do think that it's not like you could just like pick 10 people off of the street and put them through any kind of process and they're going to end up being friends like the guys in my forum. I just don't believe it. By the way, our forum, it started off twice as big as it is. People opted out over time because the intimacy is getting too difficult for them or because life changes happen to them. But a lot of them opted out because of the level of intimacy is just growing. And you got to realize if you want to make friends, a lot of people are not going to want to make friends back with you. And so you're just engaging in this sort of investing in social options. But the payoff is enormous.
You're touching on something that I think about a lot and I see so often. And, men versus women. Women just naturally gravitate towards friendships, create friendships, invest in friendships. We could get into a whole conversation of why that is, or at least that's my assumption. I do believe it's true. I don't hear too many people argue the point. But I think partially it's because men, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but they live in a transactional world. We go out and we hunt. Right? The woolly mammoth and the saber-toothed tiger back in the day. And, so there's this sort of commodity, there's this transaction, there's this quantification that happens. I think it's part of our wiring. I think we came out this way, the moment we shot out as sperm racing against each other to get to the egg, like we came out in competition. And so, but, I think our work here is to defy our nature. Right. Become super natural, to go beyond our nature. And part of that is to get beyond this sort of transactional tit for tat.
Yeah.
What do I get from it? And I hear you doing that. I see you doing that, which I feel like is what we're really talking about. Yeah. I don't see you living in the world as transactionally as some of us.
Well, thank you. That's really awesome. But I would say that I do think that there's this concept I've written about before that is worth exploring on the notion of transaction. And I call it golden tit for tat. So tit for tat is obviously, I do something for you so that I can get something from you, right? And then you do something for me, and then I do something for you. But we're doing this in sort of a mutually reinforcing kind of contingent environment where I'm only doing this because you're doing this. Well, golden tit for tat is a little bit different than that. It's like, hey, I know that there's a possibility that we could create a relationship. And I feel like it could be an amazing one. So instead of treating you like just any rando stranger guy, I'm going to take a step toward you that demonstrates that I'm willing to go further than, a typical stranger would. And then I'm just going to watch and see if you exhibit interest in going there too, right? And so we begin to ladder the intimacy level. We begin to ladder the sacrifice level. And we're maintaining a very loose symmetry. It doesn't have to be exactly the same thing. It doesn't have to be exactly the same thing from me to you and you to me. And the timing doesn't have to be exactly the same. But over the long course of a relationship, there's got to be a relative equilibrium between what you're contributing and what I'm contributing. There's got to be some symmetry or some balance to that thing, because otherwise it's just service.
Right.
I mean, that's not friendship. I mean, I think service is important, but friendship is not service.
Yeah, that's why we call them peer groups. There has to be a peerness, right? Exactly. It can't be a hierarchical, I'm taking care of you. That's something else. And that has its place.
Yeah, I agree. Reciprocity and some degree of symmetry is super important in my concept of friendship.
But I would still argue, not argue because we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And you just have a better name for it, the golden tit for tat. I feel like if we created that as a website, you get something else.
But then we'd have to disclose that to our peers.
But Martin Buber, great philosopher, said there's two ways to be in the world: I, it, and I, thou.
Yeah.
It's one of those great statements. It doesn't need that much explanation.
Yeah, it's great.
Right? Turn people to an it or a thou.
Well, yeah. Our one of my favorite books is called Improvisation for the Theater. And it's actually the best management book I've ever read. And it's by this woman named Viola Spolin, and she was an acting coach. And one of the things that she helps you see is that when you're interacting with someone else, especially in improv, there's a tendency for amateurs to treat everyone on the stage as if everyone else is a prop or an extra, and I am the actor on the stage. And that's not how collaboration works. Like, collaboration is, I enter with some set of stimuli for you, and you come with some set of responses and stimuli for me. And together, this thing is going to go in the technology world, we would say it's emergent. It's unknowable in advance. It's going to go some direction that we don't know. And that's the way I see friendship is. It's a collaboration in which I'm going to bring some things to the table, but you're not a prop. You're not an extra in my life. You're like the co-star, the equal co-star in this production. And so you're going to have your own agency, and you're going to have your own preferences, and you're going to take this thing in directions that I didn't exactly anticipate. And that's pretty amazing.
So Enneagram 7, the enthusiast, is the energy in this personality typing system that is sort of like the sun, solar power, right? And that's what I feel like when I'm with you. There's a solar power. There's an energy. It's the word enthusiasm, entheos, the God from within. It's like this manifestation. And so you have that ability. Now, I'm going to twist it a little bit, because solar power sucks when the clouds come out.
Okay.
Shit don't work.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit, because I get pulled into the direction with you of solar, and I'm energized and beautiful. And I also want to know when Scott has to face the clouds.
Yeah. So generally speaking, it is where my exploration urge gets me out over my skis. Right. This is the principal failure modality of my life. Is my good example. My dad teased me about having talked about, I'd been talking about doing a remodel on our house for maybe, I don't know, 2-3 years. Things that I wanted to change that annoyed me. And he teased me. He's like, you've been talking about that a long time. Are you ever going to do it? And so I literally went home and got a sledgehammer and knocked a gigantic ass hole in a wall.
Throwing down the gauntlet.
Exactly. I'm like, well, we're doing it now. And that project turned into, a 5-month, more than full-time job, because I actually did the work and supervised the work. And it was huge. It touched every room of our house except one. And it was enormously expensive. And obviously, given the genesis of it, I hadn't done any budgeting, no planning, no setting aside money.
Just bought a sledgehammer.
I didn't even buy it. I just went and pulled it out of my garage and started tearing stuff up. And so I am not a god and I am not a magician. And so when you do something like that, you're going to get in trouble. And it was financially really dicey for our family because, I hadn't arranged any home equity loans, nothing to finance this thing. We're just going to basically pay cash for a giant remodel as we go. That stressed me out a great deal and, leads to lots of questioning about, am I taking care of my family properly? Am I foisting risk on the people that I love without their consent? All those questions. So there are dark moments when I feel like my need to explore imposes a cost on the people that I love, and that, it always does, but sometimes those costs seem to me to be excessive, and I feel guilt and remorse.
Yeah, that sounds like the Enneagram 7 energy of. There's a famous story, Peter Pan, of course, and Peter Pan is that quintessential 7 energy of just wanting to fly, experience it all, right? And the moment that he starts to change is when he's wrestling with his shadow. If you remember the story in Wendy's bedroom, and he's trying to stick his shadow on, right? And he's trying to do it with soap, and she's like, silly boy, you need to sew your shadow on.
Right.
And I imagine, only knowing you on the second mountain of your life,
right.
The first mountain was a lot of that grappling with that owning the shadow, owning that piece of it.
Yeah. there are things that, the first half of my life, actually, I think I spent, you familiar with the ideas of like your natural, biases and then your affected biases. Like you can adopt certain behavioral patterns that are just necessary, but not natural. And so for the first 20 years of my adult life, most of my time was spent in these kind of affected areas of ultra responsible, carrying the weight of everything and everyone else, super conservative, basically, in just basically trying to take care of my family. And that kind of repressed creativity and need to explore is what exploded into my life in midlife. And after, that's the going down to the Caribbean. I didn't know how to sail. I had never sailed a boat in my life. I went to sailing school in San Diego for 10 days. And then I bought a 50-foot yacht, took it to the Caribbean, and just lived on it and sailed on it full time.
With your family?
With my girlfriend at the time, who became my wife. But no, just
your kids are
grown. They're in college. So, who does that?
Well, Scott Davis.
Explorers do that, right? And so there's just a lot of, there's a lot of repressed, pent up energy in your natural, proclivities when you just suppress them with your affected behaviors. And so part of the beauty of these, small groups is for guys to begin to say, hey, listen, there are these things that I have wanted and I have not actually done. And I need to kind of work out how I'm going to begin to introduce those into my life in a way that's not explosive, that doesn't blow everything up. Because for me, it went, in order to do what I needed to do after 20 something years of not being able to do it, I literally sold everything that I owned. I gave the keys to my company to my partner. I mean, I had everything that I owned in the world fit in 9 of those Home Depot crates. Everything that I owned in the world when I was done. And I shipped them all off to and put them on a boat in Fort Lauderdale and took off to the Caribbean. I mean, that's pretty freaking dramatic.
Yeah. Is it, was there a trigger event? Was it a process?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, there was a pretty powerful trigger event. I'd been married for 20 years and that marriage was just over. What we'd realized was that we'd done our best to raise a great family and to have a meaningful impact in the community and to take care of each other. I mean, we were just children when we got married. But what we realized is that as adults, that there was a path forward that the best path forward for each of us probably was not with the other person. There were just desires that we had in terms of how we wanted to live our lives that weren't really it's not that we couldn't be together. It's that the cost for each other to satisfy what the other one needed was just going to be so high. And so we had, some tough conversations about, I love you enough to allow you to go find happiness via this other path, but I cannot go there without sacrificing who I am. And what's the point of that? Mm. So that brought up a whole lot of, really deep questions. And so I needed some time to think about it and I needed to get away. She needed some space. I mean, all of our social networks were intertwined. I mean, everybody that I know, she knows. And so we've got to prevent our friends from feeling like they're taking sides in a civil war. I mean, we love each other, but their response is, oh, you're getting divorced, I have to pick sides. So yeah, getting away was a way to create sufficient space that nobody sensed that there was a civil war. Nobody had to pick sides. And now we can all be in the same room together and it's totally fine. But, I just needed some time to go ask really deep and hard questions about who am I and how do I want to navigate the world? And I've got, hopefully 40 or 50 more years. What do I want to do with them?
And so you went to the Caribbean, you lived on a yacht.
I did.
You learned to sail.
I did.
You went sailing. How long were you out there?
3 years on the boat and then another couple of years on an island. And
on purpose.
Yeah, on purpose. That's very funny. Yeah, my youngest son is bipolar. And part of his therapy was this very aggressive chemical regimen, essentially the chemical equivalent of electroconvulsive therapy. And for that, he had to be removed from this overstimulated environment. So we got a cottage on a small island in the outer islands of the Bahamas, and he came and lived with us. And it was 24/7 being with my 20-something-year-old son and, hey, it's time to get up. Hey, it's time to brush your teeth. Hey, we're going to have this for breakfast. Hey, we're going to do this. We decided to build a boat. So we built a boat from scratch and that was our project and it kind of gave some structure to the thing. But that was the last couple of years was being on the island, mostly with my son, building a boat and just helping him get through his recovery process.
And so much of that material became the subject matter for your book,
Exactly.
Surf the Seesaw.
Yeah. So Surf the Seesaw was it was just the outgrowth of a lot of notes that I took and a lot of ideas that kind of condensed sitting on a beach or sitting in the boat, dealing with Parker. And, it basically boiled down to if I could only tell my grandkid, which I didn't have at the time, if I could only tell my grandkid 30 or 40 things that like the really important principles on which a meaningful life would be based. Well, what would it be? And so it started off and it was like 40 or 50 and gradually you just kind of eliminate and get down to, and it just became 30. And so it's 30 essays, each on these experiences in life that revealed some really important principle.
It's a great book for many reasons, not the least of which is their vignettes, their short teachings, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're great for peer groups as a warm up.
Oh, yeah.
Some content, jumping off points for our conversations. We've
I like
unpacked a few of them. We got to get back after it. But I recommend it for people who, want a jumping off point. Like each one of them stands alone.
Yeah, it's kind of intended to be sort of like your, from the religious context, it would be a daily devotional. Read this thing. You can read it in, a chapter you can read in 10 or 15 minutes. It doesn't tell you what to do. It simply asks some questions at the end for you to contemplate. And then, you think about it for a few days, and then you can go read the next one and try that one. And there's space in the book for notes. The whole idea is, for me, an author is participating in a collaboration. So what I'm doing is I'm bringing some stimuli to the table, and I'm looking for my reader to bring their own unique content to it, right? I have no idea what that's going to be. So people have said, hey, this book is kind of like a U2 song. Like I read something completely different in this chapter than my friend read in this chapter. I'm like, well, that's what I call success, because the whole idea is your experiences and your values are different than your friends. And I want you to bring those to the table. So there's no prescriptions. There's no like 7-step plan or anything like that. It's just a series of questions that allow you to kind of figure out where the guardrails are. And there's a whole lot of space between the guardrails for us to find good solutions for living our lives. But we also have thousands of years of human history that help us understand that there are dragons outside those guardrails. So it's really a way for us to begin to understand what are the guardrails in various aspects of our lives.
Oh, I love it. I kind of feel like we come full circle. You're an interesting cat for many reasons, not the least of which is you hold tensions, right? It's not either or. And that's back to your mom and your dad. And that's back to the, the responsibility and the exploration. And it's back to this pondering, contemplative thing that Surf the Seesaw has done for me, when I read it. But then it's like, how do I channel this to make an impact? What do I do with this? And then you come back to, this version of your life that you're living now.
Yeah.
And I know you're translating a lot of these ideas into impact. I know with Fulcrum.
Yep.
So maybe just share with us a little bit about how that translates to impact in the world.
Well, I think that I am privileged to have started a technology company back in the late 90s that's still kicking around and still buying the groceries. And that buys me some flexibility that I recognize that not everybody has. So I'll start with that. Not everybody can do what I do. But Fulcrum is my approach to affordable housing, which is I think that the government is really focused on low income folks and the market takes care of high income folks. But the middle class is the core of American culture, and it's essentially overlooked. Basically, what we say to the middle class is, you're on your own. But the middle class is super important. Like all of my innovative companies that I've created could not have created value without software engineers and financial analysts and the worker people that are just, they're basically making median income, and they're going home to their family and taking care of their family, and they're voting, and they're doing all the things that make our community cohere. And, housing has just become a really, really difficult problem for them. So I'm a bit of a financial engineer. And so I found a way to create a novel financing arrangement, get the state to approve it. And what that essentially allows is that Fulcrum's a 501c3 nonprofit. And because of the way we've structured it, we can issue tax-exempt bonds to purchase homes. And that gives us a huge advantage over for-profit developers. So we can actually buy these homes and pass through all of the financing savings. So people can actually rent our homes for cheaper than they could buy the homes, which is super important for, young professionals starting out, people that want to have a family. I mean, you want to have more kids in the US? Well, making a yard more affordable might help. So that's what we're trying to do, is just do something, build a portfolio of rental properties that are for the benefit of the community, not for any investors or anything like that. and just pass through all the savings to the people who are renting. So typically our properties rent for about 20-25% below market. Yeah, I'm really proud of it.
And then there's a shelf life for how long they get to be in the house, and then they move on.
Yeah, so they have rent controls. So in the contract, the rents only go up by 2% a year, and they can stay for up to 10 years. So they have the tenant right to stay instead of having to ask us every year. So as long as they sign what we call the good neighbor agreement, which is a set of behaviors that they'll exhibit and not exhibit, as long as they comply with that, they can stay there for up to 10 years, and they will save a tremendous amount of money, obviously.
Sounds so empowering as opposed to so many, other programs that maybe good intention. Actually, you have a chapter in your book from what I remember.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's true. I mean, I don't, good intentions are sort of a get out of jail free card. It makes us feel good, even though we didn't actually do anything.
Or made a negative impact.
Yeah, exactly. But I intended to do something good. Well, sorry, that doesn't count because you actually hurt people.
I love it. Yeah. Love it. So you're translating that solar power of Scott Davis into sunshine for other people. It's amazing.
That is kind of the whole point, right? I mean, I think this, when I think about the meaning of life, really, to me, you have to come back to, well, how do scientists search for life in the cosmos? And to understand how they search for it, you have to understand that what the cosmos looks like is it looks like noise. It's just white noise. It's just random, chaotic, the result of entropy, everything falling apart, going into disarray, lower energy states. It's just noise. And so what we look for is, as scientists, we look for a signal, a pattern, an organized signal that rises above this sort of white, chaotic noise. And I think that that's just such a perfect metaphor for what we want our lives to be like here. Like there's so much destruction and so much tearing down and so much hate and so much vitriol and so much critique, so much negativity and so much, people just saying the same things. That's just white noise. People just being just like their neighbor, white noise. Everything is just noise. But every once in a while, somebody does something different, right? They choose to be encouraging. They choose to help. And that person is just so obvious, so radiant, so impactful on other people. I mean, that to me, that's the whole ball game, is how can I live my life in such a way that I can inspire or equip or educate or guide or just help in some way some number of people? Because when I do that, I give them a little bit of my spiritual DNA that they will then propagate to other people and other people and other people long after I'm gone. I mean, I could build a house. That house is going to survive for maybe 100 years and then it's going to fall apart. And nobody's ever going to, that won't be a signal that I was even here, right? So the good question is, if there are two universes, the universe that we inhabit in which Baruch is here and a parallel universe in which Baruch is not here, the fundamental question of Baruch's meaningfulness is, what's the difference between those two universes? Mm-hmm. How big is that difference? How long does that difference last? This is the fundamental question. So I'd very much like for there to be a difference. I don't want to be noise.
You are far from noise, brother. It's been an honor and privilege to listen to your signals.
I love it.
To be a part of, as you said, this is the ball game that you're creating. And so really just honored and privileged to have gotten to know you and to have this formal conversation. Frankly, this is just our typical coffee date. Now
great.
Made public.
Well, I appreciate that you took a step toward me when I took a step toward you, because this is a blessing for me too.
Well, thank you. Many more conversations to be had.
Can't wait.
And do you have a website where people can learn more about Fulcrum?
Yeah, fulcrumcommunities.org is where they can learn about what's going on with Fulcrum. Obviously, Surf the Seesaw is where you can find out about the book. And I'm just a super accessible guy. So, contact me via LinkedIn or, whatever.
Or the Blue Sparrow coffee shop. Whatever.
Exactly. I do hang out at Blue Sparrow from time to time.
All right. Well, many more, and keep shining that light.
I love that, man.
All
Thanks.
Right. Thank you.